Hi, this is Sean Henricksen here at the Sean Henricksen Law Firm, where we help good people like you avoid the devastating consequences of criminal charges. Today, we're going to be talking about the necessity defense. Before we get to that, we do have a free download for you. It's 4 things you should be doing right now if you've been arrested. You can click down in the notes below, and there's a link there you can click on, and we will send that right over to you. We also have a podcast called What to Expect When You're Arrested. There's also a link down to that in the show notes. And in that podcast, we walk you through everything that you should be expecting during the different parts of being charged with a crime. The necessity defense is really pretty simple, but I'm going to start just by reading what's in the penal code, even though it's a little bit confusing. The Texas Penal Code states that conduct is justified if the actor reasonably believes the conduct is immediately necessary to avoid imminent harm and the desirability and urgency of avoiding the harm clearly outweigh, according to the ordinary standards of reasonableness, the harm sought to be prevented by the law prescribing the conduct. And a legislative purpose is to exclude the justification claimed for the conduct does not otherwise plainly appear. Now, the way that that's written is confusing, but essentially this is just a balancing test, and it's done by the fact finder, which means that if this is going to go to a trial by jury, then this is a decision for the jury to make. Essentially, what is the harm that you were concerned with? And second, what is the law that you broke or the conduct that you did that the state is saying was illegal to try and prevent that harm from happening? Just to go to a simple example that a lot of y'all have probably seen, at least on TV, is you'll see somebody on TV, maybe there's a husband who's trying to get his wife to the hospital because she's in labor. They get pulled over by the police, and the police ask, if there's any reason why they're speeding. And essentially in that type of a situation, what we're looking at is the harm potentially to a baby being born in a car as opposed to being in a hospital, compared with or balanced against the risk of speeding through whatever streets that they're driving through. The potential for harm to a baby being born in a car is obviously very real. If there are any complications with the pregnancy or anything else, there's obviously no medical care to treat the baby and help the baby or the mom in that situation. We're comparing that potential harm to the baby or the mom against speeding. And what we're looking at there is, essentially the circumstances around the speeding. How much were they speeding by? How much traffic was there? How dangerous was it to the community that this person was speeding this mom to the hospital to have her baby at the hospital instead of in the car? I think in most circumstances, generally you are going to probably win in a case like that on a necessity defense because the potential harm is very great and the risk is probably not as high when you compare it to the potential harm, possibly of the baby not surviving the birth if there are any complications. Now, there are a lot of qualifications to this defense that it mentions in the penal code. The harm that you're trying to avoid has to be imminent. So this can't be something way off in the future or something where there would have been an alternative to breaking the law. It needs to be an imminent harm that you're trying to avoid. And what you're doing to try and avoid that harm has to be reasonable. So you can't do something completely crazy in order to try and avoid the harm that you're trying to avoid. Now, the example that I gave was essentially necessity in a speeding defense, because it's an easy situation to look at, but necessity can be applied to any crime that there is. Essentially, as long as you can show that whatever law you're accused of breaking, you broke to avoid some imminent harm, and that your breaking the law was reasonable under the situation, then you should win on a necessity defense. If you have any questions about the necessity defense or anything else that I've said, or if you're being charged with a crime here in San Antonio, please feel free to give us a call. Phone number is 210-942-4997, or you can click down in the notes below, and there's a link down there to schedule a free consultation with us. I hope that this information has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a great day.